And we begin tonight with a Fox News alert. Of course, there is a ton of breaking news tonight with regard to the Inspector General. Extensive coverage tonight on the DOJ bombshell report that came out today. It's all about the handling of the Hillary Clinton email investigation. Let me tell you who we've got on tap tonight with us. Catherine Herridge, of course, former Assistant U.S. Attorney Andrew McCarthy, House Intelligence Committee member Congressman Chris Stewart is going to be here, along with longtime Clinton watcher Peter Schweitzer. He is going to join us as well. He's been tracking the Clintons for years. They'll all weigh in. Plus, late night tonight, as you just heard Laura talking about, we hear that an immigration package is coming together in the House. Republicans are putting this together after much debate. This debate, especially over the separation of children from their parents who have come here illegally. So a small group of reporters is also touring a converted Walmart area where the children are being housed. We're going to look at all of those things. And 1 year later, Congressman Steve Scalise is back in the game. We were there on the field. That is your good feel-good story for tonight. So we'll have that for you. This together after much debate. I'm Shannon Bream in Washington. Debate, especially over the separation of children from their parents who have come here illegally. So a small group of reporters is also touring a converted Walmart area where the children are being housed. We're going to look at all of those things. And 1 year later, Congressman Steve Scalise is back in the game. We were there on the field. That is your good feel-good story for tonight. So we'll have that for you. Hello and welcome to Fox News at Night. I'm Shannon Bream in Washington. Now, within its 568 pages is a thorough examination of political bias and missteps by top FBI agents and officials, yet the DOJ Inspector General concludes there was no evidence that political bias tainted their investigations. The language is very important here. So tonight we're examining the claims in comprehensive coverage of the wide-ranging IG report on the Clinton email investigation released late today. We begin with Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge. She's been poring over this. All right. So we're hearing that there's no evidence of political bias, but what does that really mean?
Okay, so I think the language really matters in this Inspector General's report. And if you look at the specific section in the executive summary, it says we did not find documentary or testimonial evidence. So we didn't find paper or witness testimony that there were any improper considerations, including political bias. So if you actually read in between the lines here, Shannon, and I know you're doing that with your legal mind, what you see is they never found paper or witnesses that spoke to it to make that connection, but it's not to say it didn't happen in this case.
Right. Okay. There was also a new text revealed from FBI agent Peter Strzok about stopping Trump, stopping him from becoming president. And my understanding is that was previously redacted when House lawmakers were given some of this material.
What we learned today is that the Inspector General, they've been going through a forensic review with the Strzok and Page cell phones, and it's been an ongoing process. And every time they did another cycle, new text messages would come to light. And this particular text message, which comes from August of 2016, only came to light last month. That's how new it is. And the Inspector General, based on what we learned today, makes kind of a pivot in his conclusion, saying, we felt that before January of 2016 and that Comey public statement about the Clinton emails, we couldn't find evidence of political bias. But really after that, and based on this text, we think that in the latter stages there may have been political bias, and that Agent Strzok was really prioritizing the Russia investigation and not prioritizing the Clinton email investigation.
Yeah, and it seems like there's sort of an open-ended question there that the IG said much of these texts were about the Russia investigation, and almost leaving you to think there's going to be more of that conversation.
I'm glad you picked up on that, because what I think he was really communicating is that I'm not making judgments per se about all of these investigations, just the Clinton case, kind of wait for Chapter 2, whether there was political bias at play in the decisions in that case.
Yeah, in the Russia investigation. So that may be a whole other layer somewhere else. Okay, so also the question about whether any kind of foreign entity was able to hack into Hillary Clinton's emails or email servers.
So we did a lot of reporting here at Fox News about the likelihood that there was some kind of compromise of the Clinton email server or her classified emails. And that's important because that would be a strong indicator that there should have been a criminal prosecution. And in the IG report, for the first time, we see documentary evidence that the FBI knew that some of Hillary Clinton's emails were compromised either by foreign nations or foreign intelligence services. And this is a very important quote, and it comes from 2017 when an FBI inspection team did a review of how the Clinton email case was handled. And it states classified information was improperly stored and transmitted on Clinton's email server, and classified information was compromised by unauthorized individuals, to include execute foreign governments or intelligence services via cyber intrusion or other means. So that's really in black and white now. We know that there was a breach or compromise of the Clinton emails, at least one at the secret level, so that's a very high level of classification. What it doesn't say is that the server itself was compromised. But in terms of criminal prosecution, that really doesn't matter. What matters is that classified information fell into the hands of a hostile adversary.
Well, and something else we saw today is that he talked about the drafts that the Comey exoneration letter went through, and at one point there was a mention that President Obama was actually one of the people that she had communicated with in an area that they thought may have been potentially compromised in a hostile area, and talking about somebody with a foreign influence probing in. But they took President Obama's name out of the report and said another senior or high-level official, something like that. So his name scrubbed from the draft as well.
I mean, I guess one of the lessons here is that it's kind of a do as I say, but not as I do. I mean, what we learned is that everyone at senior levels of the U.S. government is counseled against using personal email, especially for government business, because of classification issues. But what you saw throughout this report is that even Director Comey was using a Gmail account for his work at the FBI. Hillary Clinton used it as Secretary of State, and President Obama also used it as well with his, his highly secured BlackBerry. So I think what matters for folks at home is that you have really, in some cases, the crown jewels of the U.S. intelligence community that are very vulnerable or exposed. And in this case, we now have evidence that some of them fell into the wrong hands.
All right, well, you've been a trooper not just today, but for months and for years on this case.
I'm glad to see a lot of our ongoing reporting was really shown to be accurate and backed up by the Inspector General's report, because we took a lot of pushback from some of this reporting, and I'm glad to see that a lot of it was vindicated.
There in black and white. All right, Catherine, great job. Thank you. You're welcome.
Political bias.
All right, the Inspector General concluded that texts between FBI agents implied one of them, quote, might be willing to take official action against then-candidate Donald Trump. Yet key players are at odds over whether that means their bias impacted their investigation. Well, officially, Fox News contributor Andrew McCarthy is an esteemed former assistant U.S. attorney.
Any evidence of political bias or improper considerations actually impacting the investigation under review.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about what we learned today. I want to start with this comment from Congressman Trey Gowdy earlier tonight on Special Let's turn now to brand new, well, officially, Fox News contributor Andrew McCarthy is an esteemed former assistant U.S. attorney. He has been tracking this for a long time, along with all the Mueller stuff and everything else that's going on. Andy, great to have you with us tonight.
Great to be here, Shannon. Thank you.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about what we learned today. I want to start with this comment from Congressman Trey Gowdy earlier tonight on Special Report. The overall conclusion of the Inspector General is that if there was political bias, they didn't see evidence that factored into any of the decisions made on the investigation. Does that settle it for you?
Not only wanted to stop his campaign, but once he won, got on the Mueller probe because he wanted to impeach him. That is a level of animus and bias that everyone should reject.
Right, Andy, the overall conclusion of the Inspector General is that if there was political bias, they didn't see evidence it factored into any of the decisions made on the investigation. Does that settle it for you?
No, it really doesn't, because think about how carefully they're wording this, Shannon. I really don't like it when they say there's no evidence, because that means there's like no suggestion in the record that bias could have been a factor. And what they're saying here, and it's very carefully done, is that what the IG was evaluating were a series of judgment calls, and they were not going to second-guess people's discretionary judgment because their metric was the decision made irrational? Not whether they agreed with it or whether it was the only decision that could have been made under the circumstances. If that's where you're coming from, and you're also saying at the same time there's pervasive evidence that they had bias, they can't rule out the fact that bias may have played in and may actually have been decisive. So what they're actually saying is we don't have evidence here from which we can conclude for certainty that bias was what the driving factor inspector was here, but they can't discount it. And for them to continue to say there's no evidence that bias played a role here is just preposterous. That's not what the report said.
Well, it feels a little bit like the day that James Comey, then FBI director, came out and outlined this entire case of what had happened with Hillary Clinton, and then at the end said, but there's nothing prosecutable here. We're going to decline to move forward with any recommendation along that line. Now, something I learned for the first time today here is that there were actually 5 different FBI employees that they found text-in messages that they were concerned about. We've all heard about Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, but there are other people that we don't have a name yet for. Do you think we'll get those?
I think eventually we'll get a lot more information than we have now, particularly in the congressional hearings. And I think we'll end up getting a lot of information, Shannon, is when we get the other half of the story. I mean, if you think about what happened here, the FBI, and this is evident from the text messages of Strzok and Page, they considered the Clinton emails investigation and the Trump-Russia investigation as a single continuum, to the point that when Cruz dropped out of the race, and it was clear that Trump was going to be the nominee, the first thing that these two say is, in reacting to Trump being the nominee, man, we got to get this Hillary Clinton emails investigation done. It means it ratchets up the pressure to end mid-year exam, which is what they called this. In the minds of the agents, this was one series of investigations together that impacted the election. And the reason this is important is you can look at all of the different decisions that got weighed by Inspector General Horowitz and look at them in the isolation of the Clinton emails case and say, yeah, you know, that looks reasonable. Maybe that's reasonable. It might not have been what I have done, but okay. But what you don't get is comparing how they handled the emails investigation to how they handled the Trump-Russia investigation. So if you look, for example, at a decision that they make to give a guy immunity, even though they had ironclad evidence that he had lied to the FBI and was involved in the destruction of evidence, they make a case for why it was reasonable to give the guy immunity. And if you looked at that in the abstract, you'd say, okay, well, maybe not what I would have done, but reasonable. You don't get to compare that to the 5 guys that Mueller has investigated, where the lies that were told were not near the core of what he was investigating, and yet, having them over the barrel, he prosecuted every single one of them for false statements and got them to cooperate in that fashion.
A lot of people putting these side by side have those same questions tonight. Andy, thank you for your excellent analysis, always.
Chris Stewart sits on the House Intelligence
Committee. Newly revealed text messages looming large tonight, including the one we talked about with Catherine, in which FBI agent Peter Strzok tells FBI attorney Lisa Page, quote, we'll stop it talking about Trump becoming president. Well, another text reads, Viva la resistance. Evidence of an anti-Trump deep state. Will Democrats say? Nope. Republican Congressman from Utah, Chris Stewart, sits on the House Intelligence Committee, joins us now live. Great to have you with us tonight. Okay, so you're one of your counterparts and colleagues across the aisle, Congressman Adam Schiff, the top Democrat on the Intel Committee, says this: no deep state, no secret society, no anti-Trump cabal at the FBI, no evidence that political bias influenced decisions in the Clinton probe, no indication that Comey's errors of judgment did anything but help the Trump campaign, no vindication for the president. What do you say?
Oh my gosh, has he been living on Mars for the last 18 months? I mean, and I've heard that before from Mr. Schiff. It's like, I'm going to cover my ears, close my eyes, see no evil, nothing's going on here. I think Mr. McCarthy earlier said it very, very well. You can't have these examples of the, just the animosity towards this president, and there's really the visceral hatred towards his president, demonstrated with some of these FBI, very senior FBI officials, and then just presume that none of that was manifested in their work or in the way they viewed their different cases, especially when some of these individuals are working on Hillary Clinton's email thing at the same time they're working on the Donald Trump Russia investigation. I mean, it is a stretch to imagine that those personal feelings wouldn't influence their work at some point.
All right. Well, Peter Strzok's attorney, who obviously he figures prominently in this report, the attorney says the IG concluded that there is no evidence that the political views of Special Agent Strzok and others in the FBI impacted the handling of the Clinton email investigation. That's repeatedly what the Inspector General says throughout the 568 pages here. But you're saying common sense tells you otherwise?
Well, I don't know how he could possibly know that unless he can crawl inside their mind and actually examine their mental process. And I want to compliment the Inspector General for what I think is generally a very thorough work. And it's something we've been looking forward to. He's brought forth information that those of us on the Intel Committee have been beating our heads against while trying to get from the FBI and in a separate case from the Department of Justice. We're glad that he's done that. Some of this is very important. I'm just going to agree to disagree with him that he can presume to know whether it impacted the outcome of their work when it seems extraordinarily unlikely. One other thing I think is worth mentioning on this, and this is from someone who's defended Director Comey for many, many years, but it shows just the obvious lack of leadership. How is it that the very senior people around the FBI we now know are essentially political hacks and liberal political hacks? I mean, that isn't just a coincidence. And the Inspector General calling in his insubordination and pointing out the fact that he was doing the same thing he was investigating Hillary Clinton for. The number of leaks and the media contacts that senior FBI officials had who had no business talking to me, accepting gifts from media representatives. The culture within the FBI under that leadership, it absolutely had to change.
Well, Director Wray says it has and it will, and he'll push that forward. Very quickly, the one question you want to answer, because the Inspector General will be before the Senate and the House next week, the one question you want to answer.
Well, I don't know if I could say one, but I think very quickly one of them would be, did your report change? Did you ever feel any pressure to change your report? I don't know that we have evidence of that, but I think that's a fair question. And then otherwise, I would love for him to continue this work. He can't, but I would love for him to continue this work in the Department of Justice.
He's been a busy man, and he's got other investigations as well on numerous fronts that I know you're interested in as well. Congressman Stewart, thanks for coming in. Great to have you. All right, stay with us. A lot more on the fallout from the IG report, including the political outcome of a report that has both sides claiming vindication. Direwall is here to sort it out. Plus, this was an investigation into the investigation of the Clinton email probe.
The Inogen 1G4 is lightweight and compact. Plus, it's battery operated, so you can have oxygen anytime, anywhere. Imagine the freedom of doing the activities you love, spending more time with family outdoors, even traveling again. Call now to find out about our 30-day risk-free trial. There's no obligation. Say goodbye to tanks for good and reclaim your independence with the Inogen 1G4. Call right now.
As Kadzak tried to get his son a job, FBI agents aren't the only ones feeling the heat from the watchdog report. The Inspector General also faulted a former DOJ official for sharing some information about the Clinton email probe with her campaign chairman, John Podesta. The IG says former Assistant Attorney General Peter Kadzak demonstrated poor judgment in failing to recognize the appearance of a conflict of interest. As Kadzak tried to get his son a job with the Hillary Clinton campaign, emailing a Clinton staffer, let me know if you or someone else needs a great assistant. My 25-year-old son is ready for Hillary Rodham Clinton. All right, let's bring in Peter Schweitzer, New York Times bestselling author of Clinton Cash. Peter, welcome. Great to have you with us. Okay, so let's start there with Peter Kadzak. I mean, he clearly had some connections and personal relationships with the Clinton campaign and others. What do you make of that initial assessment by the IG that, there was some kind of connection, but it wasn't enough to taint this?
Well, I think it raises the question of why was he interacting the way in which he was, and why was he sharing information with John Podesta? I mean, the IG's report points out that he actually tipped off John Podesta, who was Hillary Clinton's campaign chairman, about the release schedule of the Hillary Clinton emails in 2016. At the same time that, as you pointed out, he's trying to get a job for his 25-year-old son. I mean, it just looks bad. This is the kind of swampish behavior people don't like. And if you say, well, it didn't really break any laws, that's not really the point. This is the Department of Justice. We expect impartiality, and we don't expect them to be sharing information they shouldn't be sharing, while at the same time getting favors for family members. And that's clearly what he's trying to do.
Well, and someone else mentioned quite a few times in this report that a lot of folks may not have expected to figure so prominently. His former Virginia Governor, Terry McAuliffe, obviously very, very close to the Clintons, a key political player with them and the party more broadly as well. well. There's talk in here of his connection, his PAC's connection in donations to Andrew McCabe's wife. We've been over that territory before, but there's quite a lot of admonishment here that there were sizable donations and that the recusal happened, but maybe it wasn't fully respected by McCabe once this was in full play.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Andrew McCabe was told to recuse himself, to not be involved in the Clinton Foundation investigation, and he was anyway. And look, this is the way the Clintons have operated, for more than 40 years in politics, and that is that they have a network of relationships and friends, and it makes it very difficult as far as the legal standard is there of proving a quid pro quo or some kind of collusion, because oftentimes it's a third party involved in the transaction. So in this particular case, Hillary Clinton is under investigation by the FBI. Hillary Clinton has no connection with Andrew McCabe, but one of Hillary Clinton's close political allies, the governor of Virginia, is sending hundreds of thousands of dollars to the campaign of Andrew McCabe's wife. It's tangled, it's indirect, it's harder to prove, but it still leaves the same kind of stench. And that's really the problem. People will say, Shannon, why is there this obsession with Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton on all this stuff? She's not in office anymore. The bottom line is this is not about the Clintons. It's about the rule of law. It's about impartial justice. And I think as this IG report shows, that's certainly not what we got in these Clinton investigations.
So a lot of folks reading this, especially conservatives looking at this report, say Hillary Clinton got all kinds of passes that she shouldn't have. It's clear that there were findings that the texts of a number of these FBI agents were supportive of Hillary Clinton and very anti-Donald Trump than a candidate. But here is what the Senate's top Democrat, Chuck Schumer, had to say about it today. From every Democrat on Hill in my email inbox today.
Director Comey's mishandling of the publicity around the Clinton email campaign all accrued to the benefit of then candidate Trump, not the other way around.
There's no proof of a deep
state.
And that James Comey he went public with the Hillary Clinton email investigation, but he stayed silent on the Russia investigation. Okay, so that sort of sums up all of the press releases I got from every Democrat on the Hill in my email inbox today. It didn't help Hillary, it hurt her, it helped Donald Trump. There was no bias. The GOP is trying to link this to somehow discredit the Mueller investigation. There's no proof of a deep state. And that James Comey he went public with the Hillary Clinton email investigation, but he stayed silent on the Russia investigation. On and on and on. They say that it actually was very bad for Hillary Clinton in the end.
Well, I don't think that's the case, particularly when you look at the investigation at every single turn, whether it was the interview with her, the interview with her colleagues, and the special concessions they were granted, the fact that they didn't subpoena the devices, they simply asked for them. I could go on and on and on. In each one of those cases, the benefit redounded to Hillary Clinton. In the one case in which they argue that it hurt Hillary Clinton, it was the Comey announcements later that they were reopening the investigation. He had to do that because he had told a congressional committee earlier that there were no emails that were out there, and of course that was no longer the case. So he was forced to do that, not out of political calculation, but because he faced the very real possibility of being accused of lying to Congress. So it's just laughable to me that they take one incident in a long chain of events and say this one incident proves that there was no bias. You simply can't look at this in any systematic way and come to any other conclusion that Hillary Clinton got favorable treatment, extensive favorable treatment in this investigation.
All right, Peter Schweitzer, thank you for joining us tonight. Great to have you. So where do we go from here? Because what is the political takeaway from the bombshell report? Fox News politics editor and editor of the Halftime Report, Chris Stirewalt. Good evening.
Shannon Bream.
Okay, so both sides here claiming victory. I was right. I'm vindicated. The Democrats say it proves there's no deep state. This was actually hurtful to Hillary. Conservatives saying it's clear. Look at all the bias of these people. They were making decisions that benefited her. So where do we go from here? Because there are some threads with this report that actually bleed into the Russia stuff as well.
Sure. This is why when partisans are talking, you can just sort of have like a little soundtrack, whatever music you like in the back of your mind. Just sort of turn the background music up a little bit while partisans are talking. Because obviously Democrats are going to say that this is proof that Hillary was ruined by the terrible FBI. And of course, Republicans who are trying to help the president are going to say it's proof that the FBI is so corrupt that they can't even investigate the president now. So we can sort of push their rationales aside to a certain degree, I find it interesting that Robert Mueller, to a certain degree, you read this and you read about the spirit of the Comey FBI, and it's in McCabe, it's in Strzok, and his texting partner, it's definitely in Comey himself, which is they know better than everybody else. They come to things with a strong sense of what is going to, put it this way, Comey's assumptions were all based on the fact that Hillary Clinton was going to win the presidential election, right?
And I mean, that's clear in the report that they all agreed that's what they thought.
That's what was going to happen. They knew it was so, and they proceeded. They didn't act like law enforcement people. They acted like people who were caught in this political swirl, and as we see, playing games and sending emails. So the first and most important thing I take away from this is James Comey's ruined, right? This is the full ruination of James Comey. We see now why he wanted to get his book out. We see why he did the aggressive publicity tour. This is horrible for him. And here's Robert Mueller, not a spring chicken, who had basically now, in a sense, had to come out of retirement to save this agent. Not to, I don't want to make it sound too strong, but to undo a lot of the damage that his successor did.
Okay, so I want to play a little bit of Trey Gowdy, the chairman, on special report earlier today, talking about, and he's been a longtime defender, of course, of the FBI. He's a law and order guy. He has stood by them. Former federal prosecutor. Here's what he said on special report.
But he's worried now.
Most of my fellow citizens would say, yeah, well, I want to know what Russia was doing to us in 2016. But I also want the person that's finding out, that's investigating it, to be free of bias and free of taint.
This report is his worry now is, as many people, that the FBI, and there are, he said 99% of people, I'm not worried about, these are great, hardworking, patriotic, sacrificing their lives kind of people, but he's worried now that the agency's got a taint on it.
Well, look, I think it's pretty clear that the Comey regime, and McCabe is part of it, Strzok is part of it, these folks are, that's a kablooey.
I do say this. The DOJ acquitted itself well in doing such a thorough report, and such pretty unflinching when you get down to it about the failings inside the agency.
Yeah, and there's been praise on both sides of the aisle for the Inspector General.
The harm that Comey did to it.
Even James Comey praised him too.
Unflinching when you get down to it.
Okay, let me return the Trump Foundation now in the spotlight. The New York Attorney General goes after the charity. The president's fighting back. Our panel's here to weigh in. Okay.
The current acting New York AG has stated that battling the White House is the most important job she's ever done. That sounds outrageously biased and certainly problematic. New York AG has stated that battling the White House is the most.
You go deeper than yourself. New York's Attorney General says money from the Trump Foundation that was supposed to go to charity benefited Mr. Trump's businesses and political campaign. The Attorney General's lawsuit says the Trump Foundation is little more than an empty shell that functions with no oversight from its board of directors, and that Mr. Trump ran the foundation according to whim rather than law. The lawsuit describes numerous examples of alleged financial abuse. Well, in his tweeted denial of the allegations, President Trump pointed to these comments Barbara Underwood made when she interviewed for the Attorney General job last month.
Sally at the church let them.
We have resisted many efforts by the current federal administration
PC-Matic made a website exposing the fake virus scam.
And will harm
thanks to PC-Matic's whitelist, my company has no more viruses, and I got a raise.
Institutions.
PC-Matic blocks real viruses and
in many ways, I feel this work is the most
PC-Matic is made in America.
I have ever
and they're
done.
hiring in cyber.
PC-Matic is made in America.
And they're hiring in cybersecurity. PC-Matic
and
protects
Turning Point
homes,
USA founder Charlie Kirk.
and
Welcome to you
government
both
agencies.
tonight.
Go to PCMatic.com or Cynics
Okay,
Reseller.
so this drops on the day of the IG inspector's report. New York's Attorney General says money from the Trump Foundation that was supposed to go to charity benefited Mr. Trump's businesses and political campaign. The Attorney General's lawsuit says the Trump Foundation is little more than an empty shell that functions with no oversight from its board of directors, and that Mr. Trump ran the foundation according to whim rather than law. The lawsuit describes numerous examples of alleged financial abuse. Well, in his tweeted denial of the allegations, President Trump pointed to these comments Barbara Underwood made when she interviewed for the Attorney General job last month.
This is nothing more than a political
We have resisted many efforts by the current federal administration that we believe violate the law and will harm New York residents and New York institutions.
political operation against a sitting incumbent.
In many ways, I feel this work is the most most important work I have ever done.
I think there's another foundation
tonight's panel to talk about it, Priorities USA Communications Director Josh Schwerin and Turning Point USA founder Charlie Kirk. Welcome to you both tonight.
100%. That's right. 100% of the expenditures.
Okay, so this drops on the day of the IG Inspector's report, and it also comes on the president's birthday. A little bit more about what the New York Attorney General's office is saying. This pattern of illegal conduct by the foundation and its board members includes improper and extensive political activity, repeated and willful self-dealing transactions, and failure to follow basic fiduciary obligations or to implement even elementary corporate formalities required by law. Charlie, the president says this is nothing but sleazy, corrupt New York Democrats coming after him.
The foundation currently has $1.7 million. He's exactly right. This is nothing more than a political tool, again, with a highly politicized attorney general, which admits that their goal is to try to resist this White House. Think about this. You have a state-based attorney general's office that is now being used as a political operation against a sitting incumbent president. And by the way, if we want to really get into this whole foundation discussion, I think there's another foundation that's based in New York called the Clinton Foundation, actually merits true investigation from the New York Attorney General's office. Let's talk about numbers. 100%, that's right. 100% of the expenditures from the Donald J. Trump Foundation went to actual charities, 0% to expenses. Clinton Foundation, 93% went to expenses, travel, overhead, salaries, and only 6% went to the actual charitable programmatic spending of the charity. So this is not a discussion that's going to end very well for the Attorney General's office. It's highly politicized.
Well, that is definitely, Josh, a different picture than what she's painting, because she's saying that there were expenditures on political things, paying off creditors and debts and all kinds of other things. Those are her allegations. Now, this is what the Trump Foundation is saying. The foundation currently has $1.7 million remaining, in which the New York Attorney General has been holding hostage for political gain. It's unconscionable, particularly because the foundation previously announced its intention to dissolve more than a year and a half ago. The prior New York Attorney General, who was recently forced to resign from office in disgrace, made it his stated mission to use this matter to not only advance his own political goals, but also for his own political fundraising. They say they wanted to disband and they haven't been able to.
Well, I want to first go back and correct a few things Charlie said that were just blatantly false. The Clinton Foundation, as Kellyanne Conway has said, does very good work. And they actually spend about 80 to 90% of their money on charitable work. They're more like the Red Cross that spends directly on putting people on the ground, less like the Gates Foundation that gives donations. So that is a talking point that has frequently been used and widely debunked. But going back to the Trump Foundation, they don't just spend money on charitable giving. Pam Bondi's campaign, which they gave $25,000 to, not a charity. Donald Trump, and this came out today in a lawsuit, Donald Trump has a handwritten note demanding that, or directing rather, that $100,000 from the foundation go to fix a problem for Mar-a-Lago. They have an email from the Corey Lou.
I saw that, and I have some questions about that, because the document that I saw, he said $100,000 to Fisher House, which people know is a military-related charity. So the fact that it's being characterized as something that had to do with cleaning up a mess involving Mar-a-Lago is confusing at best at this point, just based on that handwritten document.
Sure, and this was one that actually was reported back during the campaign, and this was a settlement they worked out where Mar-a-Lago had an issue with the flag, and what they agreed on was we're going to give some money to charity. Now, if Trump had done that with his own money or with corporate money, totally fine. And it might be a good charity. That's not the issue. The issue is using the Trump Foundation to pay off corporate or personal debts.
All right, let me bring Charlie back in here, because what the Trump folks are saying tonight is that essentially this was his money, most of it that funneled through. The president is also claiming that they paid out more than they actually had on hand.
Yeah, so those are the allegations.
You know,
and now we'll wait to
I guess we'll have to wait and see where the lawsuit goes.
Innocent until proven guilty.
He put his own personal money in. He paid more than that. And let's just talk more broadly here. What's the actual agenda of the New York Attorney General's office? They want to destroy this president. This is highly politicized. Schneiderman didn't even want to do this, okay? And Schneiderman wanted to do everything he possibly could against this president. He even refused, and didn't think there was enough evidence against it. So this is grasping at straws, and it's part of a broader strategy, because they start to see this Russia investigation implode against them. We have the top professional.
The White House briefing getting testier than usual over immigration, as House Republicans take another stab at a new immigration proposal. Trace Gallagher is following it all for us tonight. Good evening, Trace.
Shannon, Republican leaders have now circulated copies of a discussion draft of new immigration legislation that includes $25 billion to build the wall, would increase the number of immigration enforcement agents, and would give 1.8 million DACA recipients, the so-called Dreamers, a path to permanent residency. The legislation would also get rid of visa lotteries. In other words, the visa program would favor immigrants with skills, and it would end the controversial practice of separating families detained at the border, which Speaker of the House Paul Ryan says he strongly supports.
We don't want kids to be separated from their parents. I think I just made that really clear. And we believe because of the court ruling, this will require legislative change.
But House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi thinks Paul Ryan is posturing, issuing a statement that reads in part, quote, if Speaker Ryan were serious about ending the barbaric mass separation of vulnerable families, he would call upon President Trump to end this stunningly inhumane policy that his administration adopted immediately. Majority Whip Steve Scalise will gauge support for the bill tomorrow, but GOP negotiators say they're not ready to endorse the bill. Meantime, the subject of separating families detained at the border has angered human rights groups and immigration advocates, and it also became a hot point during today's White House briefing, where Sarah Sanders was pressed on why the administration continues to shelter immigrant parents and their children in different locations. Watch.
Because it's the law, and that's what the law states. And the law.
You guys don't have to do that.
You're right, it doesn't have to be the law, and the president has actually called on Democrats in Congress to fix those loopholes. The Democrats have failed to come to the table, failed to help this president close these loopholes and fix this problem.
It's unclear which loopholes Sanders is referencing, but we should note the Alien Transfer Exit Program, which started in 2008, was initially aimed at separating male immigrants caught along the border. The goal was to stop those illegal immigrants from crossing the border time and again, but it often resulted in thousands of families being separated. Shannon.
All right. Trace Gallagher from L.A., thank you. A video of President Trump saluting a North Korean military official is causing a bit of controversy. Kristen Fisher is here to bring us the facts. Hey, Kristen.
Hey, Shannon. Well, you know, by definition, a military salute is a sign of respect. So for a sitting U.S. president to salute a three-star general of a hostile regime, you can see why it's raising some eyebrows, especially since both countries are technically still at war. Not to mention, the first video of the salute was released by North Korean state media. It shows President Trump reaching out to shake the North Korean general's hand, but instead of shaking his hand, the general salutes him, so President Trump salutes him back. Now, several military analysts say they've never seen an American president salute an officer of another military, much less a hostile one. But the official protocol on how presidents should meet foreign leaders is murky. Remember a few years ago, former President Barack Obama took some heat for bowing to the Saudi king. In fact, our current president criticized him for it. But tonight, the White House is defending President Trump's decision to return the salute.
It's a common courtesy when a military official from another government salutes that you return that.
But President Trump isn't the only one that's showing respect. The North Koreans are giving it right back to him in this video that was broadcast throughout the country. No longer are they calling him a dotard or just Trump. Now they're calling him the President of the United States of America or even Supreme Leader. Yet, despite this newfound respect for one another, today the Secretary of State, who was traveling in China, seemed to contradict North Korea's interpretation of their agreement that U.S. sanctions would be phased and reciprocal and not contingent on complete denuclearization.
The sanctions and the economic relief that North Korea will receive will only happen after the full denuclearization, the complete denuclearization of North Korea.
Today, Secretary Pompeo also defended the president's decision to suspend those joint military exercises with the South Koreans. He says if North Korea fails to negotiate in good faith, then the U.S. will simply restore those drills. Shannon?
Well, I'm still processing the North Koreans calling our president Supreme Leader. That's an interesting, but I'm guessing that in their country that is standard.
It's
and
probably
it's
the
an
equivalent.
Honorific. Okay. All right, Kristen, thank you very much.
Report.
Yes, she reports, you decide. All right. He was shot and almost killed nearly a year ago. Congressman Steve Scalise stars in his return to second base. The highlights from the congressional baseball game next. Well, the Blue Wave took over Nats Park tonight, but the star of the show was a Republican at second base. Senior Capitol Hill producer Chad Pergram has the highlights from the congressional ballgame.
All eyes were on second base at Nats Park, just blocks from the Capitol.
Steve Scalise, the majority whip who plays, was shot.
House Majority Whip Steve Scalise was playing second base at the GOP baseball practice a year ago when a gunman tried to murder him and his Republican teammates.
Well, I was hitting balls to Scalise when the shot went off, and I immediately dove in the dugout, and it was a real dugout that was about 6 foot deep.
Scalise nearly died. U.S. Capitol Police officers Crystal Griner and David Bailey, along with lobbyist Matt Micah and House aide Zach Barth, were wounded. Before the game, Bailey and Griner threw out the first pitches, with Micah and Barth as battery mates. Not only were they there, but so was Steve Scalise, who got a standing ovation and started at second base. Last year's game was about who wasn't here. This year's game is about who was. Always expect the unexpected in baseball, and there was no exception to that rule in tonight's game. You can't make this stuff up. On the game's first pitch, Democratic leadoff hitter Raul Ruiz of California hit a sharp grounder to Scalise at second. And shades of Joe Morgan, Scalise fielded it cleanly and nailed Ruiz at first. Lawmakers take the game seriously. Democratic Ohio Congressman Tim Ryan sliding Pete Rose style into home. A Little League inside the park home run, Louisiana Democrat Cedric Richmond. And California Democrat Nanette Berrigan getting into not one but two arguments with the umpires. First, over catcher's interference, then saying she was hit by a pitch. She lost both arguments. Berrigan bleeds Dodger blue. She fared better in last year's game with a hit and an RBI as a rookie.
To get an RBI and bring in a run was amazing. On the field, you're right. I've been playing baseball for a long time, since I was a little kid. So for me, I know how to run the bases. And before I got up to bat, I told Coach, if I get on base, don't put in a base runner for me.
Berrigan's jersey number isn't for Dodgers pitcher Rich Hill.
This is my congressional district, 44.
The game at Nats Park was quintessentially Washington. Who wins the race tonight? Who wins the race? Democrats or Republicans? Who wins? You, Teddy? Teddy, you never win. And look at this. There are actual congressional baseball cards, Shannon.
I love it.
The Democrats won 21-5.
Yeah, it was not a close case. When we said blue wave, yeah, that was the truth. But I mean, yeah, some serious hits out there. Look, I've got Congressman Cedric Richmond. You said he hit a home run tonight.
Yep.
So, and I got Steve Scalise too.
I have Kevin Brady, Chair of Ways and Means, Nanette Berrigan, and Jeff Flake from Arizona.
All right, good story. Most watched, most trusted, most grateful you spent the evening with us. Good night from Washington. I'm Shannon Bream.